I'm Alison Arngrim. And how long has it been since it's been the Alison Arngrim Show live with me, as opposed to, hi, here's another rerun. I'll probably rerun this episode 8 million times because it's going to be awesome. So this is Alison Arngrim, the Alison Arngrim Show. And okay, some of you do know me as Evil Nellie Olson. I'm Alison Arngrim, and it's the Alison Arngrim Show. And here on the Alison Arngrim Show, we talk about things that make you feel good, the TV shows and the movies that made us feel good, and the people who made them, and people who are doing things right now to make the world a better and more interesting place. And I'm excited. I have like a giant, massive, huge movie star. I have and stage star. I have a huge star on my show tonight. It is always fun, who is doing really interesting and amazing things. And yes, it's like, oh, shut up. You do not have Dinah Manoff on your show. I do. Yes, as in Grease, as in Soap, as in Empty. Yes, actually, Dinah Manoff. She has written a book. She's written a book. And you're like, oh, an autobiography? No. Except maybe, kind of slightly, possibly. Well, she knows the territory. Let's just say that. Everybody, please welcome Dinah Manoff.
Thank you for having me, Alison.
Thank you so much for coming. Yes, this is just wild. I mean, as we said, during the strike, so many people are like, well, I can't do any talk shows right now. Can't actually discuss anything I'm doing. I can come and talk about my dog. It was murder. But we held on. And now we can talk about everything, because I know I have some of my fans are just squeeing right now. I was a huge fan of Soap. People are going, oh my God, Grease. Oh my God, everything. There's just people flipping out right now. So there you are.
Well, thank you. I'm kind of flipping out because I loved you. I mean, I love to hate you in Little House on the Prairie. And I always think playing the villain is the most fun thing. Anyway, I don't know how it was as a child to play a villain, but as a grown-up, it's certainly the more fun role.
I think it is. I was a fan of villains as a kid. I was just telling someone in an interview this morning, I watched Peter Pan and I thought Captain Hook was cool.
There's something wrong with you. I'm sorry to tell you.
Something wrong with me. But I was like, oh, cool, I'm the villain. So no, I thought it was a blast at 12, like, ooh, I'm the bad guy. But yes, no, it was a great part. I enjoyed it enormously. So I'm always happy when people enjoyed hating me. That's always good.
Yeah.
So you grew up in a showbiz family. I had a similar thing. My father was on Broadway, was a manager. My mother was Casper the Friendly Ghost. Big voiceover person. I know your mother was Casper. I mean, she was a bunch of people. She was Gumby and Sweet Polly Pyramid and whatnot. But I grew up in a showbiz family, and we were all kind of hanging around the same places at the same time. We're all in New York in the early 60s and then out in LA. It was all the same kind of area. So it's a weird place to grow up. It's like, when people ask Carrie Fisher, what's it like to grow up with famous parents? She's like, I don't know. What's it like to not grow up with famous parents? How do you explain that whole thing of when you're growing up in a New York, Hollywood environment? Your mom is Lee Graham. Hello.
Yeah, I think it's a very unusual childhood. I didn't know it was unusual until, I started hanging out with my other friends whose mom did not sleep till noon and, spend 2 hours putting on her makeup. And, I had a very permissive childhood. I, often would fall asleep when we were living in New York. I would often fall asleep in my mom's dressing room at the theater or in the booth at the Russian tea room. And, I met really interesting people, but I didn't know they were interesting until, I grew up and looked back and, like Oscar Levant was over at the house all the time, and, Michael Douglas and Brenda Vaccaro. And I mean, there were really, Warren Beatty, and there were really interesting people at the house. And so, I wouldn't trade on any of that. I wouldn't call it the most stable upbringing a person could have.
Yes.
I think that I very much have parented in reaction to the parents. I make a lot of French toast and pancakes and get up early, but yeah, I wouldn't trade on it, and I bet you wouldn't either.
I'm just sitting here kind of going, ditto, 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 ditto. Get completely wacky, but I mean, I met all the most interesting people and went in more interesting places. And as an adult, I go, oh, that's probably not a good idea. But the other part with the interesting people, yeah, that was great.
Yeah, yeah. And the book that I wrote, The Real True Hollywood Story of Jackie Gold, Jackie, like me, is raised in Malibu Colony. When I was 8, my mother got a role in Peyton Place. Had just
What?
gotten off the blacklist. She was blacklisted for many years, and her first
As
role,
with your dad, that's like
yeah,
you are also part of a huge part of American history and cinematic history, and that your parents went through the whole blacklisting phenomenon.
yeah, that was a whole other, that's a whole other story
That's another
for
book.
another
That is
podcast.
an entire other, several books that you can
Right.
write on it. Yeah.
Right. But that childhood in Malibu Colony is very particular and unique and funny. And I really enjoyed writing from those memories, even though Jackie Gold is not me and it's not a memoir. As you said in the introduction, it draws on, the world I grew up in and the world that I know, and hopefully tells a tale in a really funny, entertaining way.
The part I read was marvelous, and you've gotten great reviews. I mean, have you gotten, though? I mean, the sort of Carrie Fisher comparisons of like, yes, it's a novel, but gosh, a lot of this is close to you.
Yeah, not really, because once you leave you jump off from the upbringing from the colony. It's not my story at all. Jackie really has her own story. Her mother is definitely not my mother. My mother was present and accounted for. Jackie's mother, is a waitress at the Colony Coffee Shop, and was loosely based on this story I had heard as a kid about the Colony Coffee Shop waitress marrying the rich guy in the colony. And I thought, oh God, that's so juicy. I got to work with that. And that's so while the feelings are very similar, and Alison, I'm sure you'll identify with a lot of the insecurities and fears
Mhm.
about acting and feeling like a fraud and hating the rejection. I A lot of that is in there, and a lot of that was true for me as well as for Jackie. But other than that, it's really her story.
And it opens, I mean, with a marvelous whole thing. It's about a lot of it about the overly aggressive new world of paparazzi that we've gone into,
Right.
where it's just never mind the telephoto lens, let's just walk straight into your house with our cell phones and our phones, and it's just nonstop, to the point that people have had horrible things happen to them. And this is sort of the ultimate, like, dark, warped conclusion of what happens to this character.
Yes, Jackie tells her story from the hospital bed where she's lying in a coma after jumping off a balcony to escape the paparazzi. And, that's not funny, but
But,
but
but
I
it's
think it's funny.
when I was reading it, I was cracking up. So yeah.
But the germ of that happened for me when, back when I was on a television series on Empty Nest. And the paparazzi, and I'm sure you had the same thing, they'd write silly stuff sometimes and dig up stuff, but it was very harmless. But when my first son was born, one of these guys from the Inquirer showed up at my front door
Oh, ew, ah,
to
ooh.
question my son's paternity.
What?
And
What?
I went, as only a mama bear can protecting her cub, I went crazy on him. I chased him off my property. I called a lawyer. I said, I don't know what they're after, but, I'm feeling really invaded here. And it wasn't long before that Princess Diana had been killed in the tunnel by the paparazzi. And
Jeez.
while I did not feel like I was going to die, I sure felt invaded. And it started the idea for me of writing about, what if there was this big star, like, in my mind, it was like Demi Moore or Lindsay Lohan or Britney Spears, one of those girls who was constantly trailed and tortured by the paparazzi. And in those days, as you know, Allison, the tabloids were where all the gossip was. There was no TMZ, there weren't
Right.
so the tabloids had that tremendous power.
And you used to have time. I was explaining this to a young person. I said, okay, in my day, you had the tabloids, you had the Inquirer, and they put the Inquirer to bed on Thursday night, and it technically came out on Sunday. It was usually like a week ahead by the date, but that was the basic cycle. So if you did something on, say, Monday, you fell down coming out of a bar, and they maybe if they really liked you, you did a lot of articles, they call your publicist or manager and say, look, we have the story we're going to run with. You'd have until like 7 o'clock Thursday evening for your manager or publicist to talk them out of it or offer them an exclusive to another story to get them to not do it, to come out on Sunday. But now you don't have that. You don't have the waiting period
No, and but
under which you
listen,
can negotiate. It's
I
just,
don't know about you, but I feel very lucky that there were no cell phones when I was a young actress in Hollywood. Because, boy,
every day.
would
Melissa
I have been
Gifford
in
and I
trouble?
go, can you imagine if there had been cell phones in TMC when we were young? Oh God,
No,
oh God,
I
no,
just
no, no.
can't.
Yeah,
So
horror
we
movie.
were
Yeah.
very lucky, my dear. Very, very lucky. Dodged a bullet.
Big time. Oh yeah. So yeah, time. You could call them up. Go, no, really, don't run the story. I'll do it. But yeah, now it's just the instantaneous thing, and part of the aggression too is it there were celebrity photographers that was their job, if not even their career, and
Right.
they actually kind of wanted to do it sometimes even for good reasons as opposed to just the trashy stuff. But you knew them. They'd come in and you'd go, Harry, not now. You knew who they were. You could call them by name, and they had a gig, and they would only go so far sometimes because they knew they needed to be on the red carpet of the next event, and they weren't going to get cut off in that. But there was a shift, and a part of it was the phone thing, where some of the tabloids, certainly TMZ, hired these just young guys, kids recently arrived from other countries, people who had never been a photographer, did not work for paparazzi, had no career aspirations other than paying the rent, to simply get out. If you bring me a photo of this celebrity, we'll pay you. The
Well, it was
end.
like
Cut and dry.
guerrilla warfare. It was
Exactly, exactly.
I mean, they would climb over anybody and anything to get the shot. And because there was so much money involved, I mean, I was just watching the episode of The Crown, before
Oh my
they
God, right?
take out that lovely Princess Diana, and it's horrifying. But anyway, my book is really funny.
Dark. I mean, it opens, it's a little dark, and then you go, yeah, but this happens, and then yes, it's her recollections, and it is so Hollywood and all of those elements, and but then also the emotions of what happens if you're a real person and you're living that. What
Right.
do you when you're lying in the hospital bed going, how did I get here? What what you would start thinking about.
Yeah. And also I want to just mention that we just finished the Audible version. It just came out 3 weeks ago. So, if you want to hear it read by me, with a cast of about 10 other actors, because I started reading the Audible by myself and I realized that I didn't actually have a talent for playing 10 other characters. I just couldn't do it.
I'm shocked because why would you not? I mean,
Because vocally, I mean, I didn't understand what that job was. I'd never done it before, and
it's really hard.
yeah, it's really hard, and I was not prepared to learn it. So I just cast it, with local talent that I work with here, and a couple of working actors from here, and we went into a little studio where I live, on an island near Seattle, and we sent all the recordings to the distributor in LA, and he put it all together. So it's really like a radio play. It's really
Okay,
fun.
this is brilliant because I mean, I read mine and I enjoyed it, but man, it took longer than I thought. It was days and days. It was really hard work. We had to start and stop it. We had to take breaks. The producer recording it said, "Are you okay? Do you want to take another break?" I got to take a break. It's an exhausting process,
Yeah.
and it's different than you think. Well, I just read my book. There's all these rules. Well, no, no, no. My favorite one, she said, "Okay, you can't yell. You have to fake yell." She said, "Because remember, they're listening to it in the car with the windows rolled up or in headphones in the dark. She said the calls are coming from inside the house. It's like, I'm like, oh my God, that's terrifying. She explained all this, and I went, this is a whole other world. This is really hard. And
Yeah.
everyone I know has recorded their book going, I had no idea it was going to be like that. And I know people who said, I got 2 days in, I had to take a week off and like go back. It is really hard to record your own book. Who did you get? Who did you bring in?
Well, I'm an acting teacher where I live, and I've directed up here, and so I have like this whole marvelous kind of troupe of of actors to choose from who are not all that busy, because they're just regular people living here like I am. And so we went into the studio every night for 3 weeks, and I was able to, knock out the book. I had to re-record a bunch of it because my voice I kept losing my voice because it's
Right?
so much. So I had to go back in and re-record some of my stuff. But it was just so much fun to have this story come alive. I never expected that I would get to act Jackie as well as write Jackie. So it was just a blast.
Fantastic. Now that is another thing. Okay, so you teach acting, of course, long acting background and teaching acting background in your family, but you also teach acting at a women's prison.
Yes, I did for about
Wow.
3 years. Yeah, it was really good for me. I up until COVID, I well, what happened was we lost a child. Our oldest son, Dashiell, died in a car accident tragically at 19,
Hmm.
and I was gutted and non-functional, and I I did not want to be a person whose life became defined by grief and by tragedy. I was, carrying the emotion, but I wanted to survive it and thrive again. And I knew that the one way I could save myself was to be of service somehow. That's what
Yep.
I've been taught in
Yep.
life.
Yep.
And I had always had this idea in the back of my mind that it would be so cool to do improv and acting with a women's prison because, how juicy is that? Plus, I like bad girls. I'm a recovering bad girl. I'm really happy around bad girls. I get them. Mishpucha. So I went and pitched the idea of this class to the educational director at the women's prison near us. And she, loved that I was free, not free available, but that I cost no money. Plus, I had a good resume. Where else were they going to find it?
Good resume. Just a little bit, maybe a good resume.
And I started going in, and for that, time where I was in such deep grief from losing Dashiell, for 2 hours a week, I would laugh, and they would laugh, and they didn't know why I was there. They couldn't figure out what the hell I was doing there because
Who's this
I
strange
immediately
woman?
I immediately gave them all my credits because I wanted them intimidated. I mean, some of them were murderers,
Right.
so it's good they should know.
In a prison, often there's a hierarchy. You kind of have to say, okay, here's who I am, so you can decide
Absolutely.
where I rank right now. Yeah.
I managed to be very intimidating with my credits. It was very good, and for 2 hours a week, I was okay, and that bridged me back to being functional again. And so I taught there for 3 years with a friend of mine who was my teaching partner there. And then we managed to start a writing program there. We started an art program there, and they called me Dean Dinah. I was the dean of arts at Purdy Women's Prison. So
Wow.
something I never could have gotten otherwise.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the thing is that service to others, getting out of ourselves sometimes is the only way to get through a really traumatic and terrible experience.
Yeah.
It's the only way. But I'm also thinking, yeah, an acting workshop, writing workshop in a women's prison, all the things these women had been through in their lives to lead them to that point of being in prison,
Yeah.
the stuff they would really have that they wouldn't think of. They wouldn't think, they would say, I'm not an actress, I'm not a writer. But the experiences they actually had that would lend themselves to acting and writing would be fantastic.
Well, mostly what I found was they so enjoyed being applauded for and being laughed with. They didn't know they were funny. They didn't know they were entertaining, until they got up and suddenly with that light shined on them, and you know how that feels, when you
Hmm.
get that feedback, that light shined on them and they felt seen, you know. And I was very careful not to open up emotionally a can of worms I couldn't contain,
Right.
because I'm not allowed to talk to them afterwards. I'm not allowed to write to
No.
them. I can't keep in touch. Nothing. I mean, the
So there's
2
no
hours.
debrief. You don't want to
No, no, no,
necessarily.
no, no, no.
Right, right,
The
right.
two
Get
hours
in
that
there.
I'm in the room is the 2 hours I'm in the room. That's
Yikes.
it. So I had to be very careful on what I brought out. So I kept it pretty, pretty light and very dirty. They really loved being able to, swear and say inappropriate things. And
The
because
freedom.
the freedom to do that in my class was something they couldn't get anywhere else. And so that's what I did. I gave us a really good time, 2 hours a week.
Well, and you talk about that and mentioning the writing workshop. It's just that I went to this conference and there were a lot of psychiatrists and neurologists, and they were talking about how writing your life story, even in the simplest form, has enormous effects neurologically on the brain, on the neural pathways, the whole thing. And they said, literally writing your autobiography in order and analyzing it and then talking about it with people. But they said they had patients who, if they even just, they said, just a crayon, a piece of paper, a simple rundown of, well, I was born and then this happened and this happened and that happened, just a couple pages, they said a profound effect on their personality and on their wellness, and changes in how they saw themselves and how their brain worked just by analyzing those things. So that you started a writing workshop there had to have done wonders for these women.
Yes, the woman who Renee Longstreet, who was a screenwriter in another expat who lives up here by me. She did the writing workshop, and she had them do a lot of memoir writing, and
Excellent.
it was very, very powerful.
It'd be incredibly healing. Now you're on an island. Where are you? You're
Well,
way out there.
I don't say the name of the island
No,
because
we'll
then
hide you.
I get tracked down, but
Because then all the weirdos like in the book will be at the island, and you'll be
but
jumping off an island. No,
I do live a ferry ride from Seattle, and I
cool.
lived up here for 19 years. And I left when my boys were little, my three little boys. I decided that my husband and I decided that we wanted to see if we could raise them outside of LA, and so we have, and it was like the best thing we ever did.
And especially, I mean, multi-generational here to finally, as you said, find a normal life, as it were, or a
Yeah.
semblance thereof.
Well, I have tried as hard as I can to have like a normal quote unquote life up here.
Now, however, of all you've been through, I mean, do you look back, and you started relatively young? How old were you when you started in acting, stage or TV?
17.
17. Okay. That's still pretty. I mean, obviously, I started
You were a
5.
baby. Yeah, you were.
That's
Yeah.
I had a whole career from 5 to 11, and then it stopped. Actually, Little House was the comeback role. My,
Wow,
my
wow.
career, I was washed up at 11 and started over again with Little House. But still completely bonkers. But 17 is still insanely young. It is still technically being a child actor. You're
Yeah.
still the minor. That's so weird. Do you look back on that as a positive thing? Is it weird for you or what?
I think I would have done better if I'd started young like you, Allison.
Really?
I think I was a person looking for an identity from the time I was little. And my mother, who had been pushed into acting as a child star, was so against me doing it that it wasn't until I was older when I was, able to go out on my own and start a career. But I think it would have been a really good discipline for me because I was very undisciplined and I was what we used to call a juvenile delinquent.
Yeah,
So,
my kind of, no wonder you enjoyed the prisons and me. Yes, I'm like, yes, juvenile delinquent. Uh, it's it's true. I mean, being on the show, I mean, I got very lucky. Sometimes being a child actor can contribute to one's delinquency, but in my case, I was on Little House, and because I was on the show for so long, whatever insanity I was going to get up to. I was like, oh, guys, I got to be at work on Monday.
Yes,
So,
yes.
yeah.
And I was raised with that work ethic too. And I really think that acting saved my life because
Mm,
once I started acting, it's the first discipline I had ever had. And because, my mother had raised me that, even if you're dying, you show up on set on time. I
yes,
mean, I
yes.
knew that from the time I was born, that I had that ingrained in me. So no matter how, screwed up I showed up, to my jobs. And I think it bridged me until I was ready to really be a person in recovery from, all the stuff that I had been up to.
That's really good. I mean, it's funny. I was just talking about that. I was in New York and I was going from New York to Rochester doing my show, and my booker was coming, and I went and picked the flights. And he's like, "Why are we up this early? We don't have to be there until." He's like, "You and your damn child star work ethic." And of course, I was right because a big storm came in later, and we'd have never gotten there. We'd not
That's
left at the
right.
crack of dawn. Like I
Yeah.
told him.
Well, I remember when my mother, who had terrible migraines, I mean, the worst, debilitating migraines, and she would be throwing up and getting in the car to go to work. And then she'd be at work with the bucket next to her. There was never a question about whether or not she was going to go in or not. It was just a matter of doing it.
That is the thing. And people, they forget that that is the showbiz working with it. Show must go on. And people who aren't in show business and go, well, actors have it easy. It's like, yeah, you can't call in sick and have someone cover your shift.
Right.
You're just there. And so you had that ethic and everything. People adore you. Obviously, I loved soap. Everybody loves Grease. Um, do you have of the eight? I mean, it's insane to say a favorite or a project you like talking about the most because there's like a million of them between stage and TV and films. Is there a project or a film or something you did you like best?
Gosh, in retrospect, I love everything.
Right?
I mean,
And then there's also it was a job. Yay! That's where I'm
when
like,
it
it was
was
a
all
good job.
happening, yeah, when it was all happening, like we didn't know Greece was going to be like some big deal. It didn't even get reviews when it came out. It just picked up this kind of energy and steam, and John and Olivia were just so.
It came out. That's the thing we have with Little House. There's more people watching Little House now than when it was on. And the
Exactly.
critics, they hated us. Nobody cared about Little House on the Prairie. Now it's this huge thing. So yeah, you have the same thing. It's like being in the Wizard of Oz or something. Like you're later like, wait, everyone's watching this now. What is happening?
Well, I know. I tell my boys, my twins are 21, and I say, listen, if it helps you get dates, tell them your mother was a pink lady. They're like, yes, that's a really good angle, Mom.
That is so crazy. I know, but did you think that all these people are, young people be dressing up as the characters and singing along with the songs of this thing that you did 10,000 years ago? Like, yeah.
I know. We just, we're still a very close cast. At least the T-Birds and the Pink Ladies are. And we were just in Edinburgh doing a Comic Con, autograph. I'm sure
Nice.
you've done those autograph
Oh, yeah.
signing. And it's like, there we are in Scotland, and there's, everybody's dressed as Sandy and Marty and Frenchie, and coming up and weeping over, getting to meet their favorite characters from. And I'm like, wow, who knew? I mean, it's so crazy. And here I am in Scotland. We were in Liverpool last year. I mean, it's quite lovely
The
to.
French are mad for Greece as well. Like
Yeah,
it's big in France. I'm like,
we'll have to get
why?
there. I really like having these free trips to exotic places. So, I'm
Right?
all about it.
So the autograph show things, yes, we're having our big 50th anniversary of Little House coming up. So it's like the never ending now events. I'm packing for one as I speak. When you go to these autograph shows, which thing do you find? Do you go for a thing that's for Grease fans and then have like Empty Nest fans show up? I mean, do you get weird crossover? It's
Oh yeah, yeah, and Chucky. I was in
you're
childhood. I was
my Chuck.
Chucky.
Oh
Chucky's
my
for.
God, how weird is that?
Yeah, I know. So sometimes, right in the middle of the Grease thing, someone will come up with a Chucky doll, and I'll sign their Chucky doll, or their Empty Nest people, or soap. you just never know, but listen, I feel like I had, to me, the best of show business. I was working at a time when there were really fun roles for me. I was paid well, in the years when I was working. And I got out before they threw me out. I mean, I
Before they dumped you.
well, I have to say, I could see they were losing interest, but
Oh,
I
oh,
dropped
no,
out before they completely threw me out. I knew they were looking for the younger models, at about the time when I split.
What's
But
if they get us, yeah, who's Dinah Manoff? Get us Dinah Manoff, get us the younger Dinah Manoff. It was to start, can we get a younger one? Yeah.
what's really funny that you said that was there was once a breakdown of a script that said they were looking for a young Dinah Manoff, and I think I was only like 28 at the time, and I said, I'm a young Dinah Manoff, not young enough.
Horrifying. Yeah, you did well. I mean, you didn't have any of the major Hollywood disasters, as you said, other than the paparazzi coming to your house to see your baby. You didn't have a lot of that. You had the good parts. And as we know, there was that period, God, in the 80s where, as I said after Little House, I was offered so many roles, but I needed to be a cheerleader, naked or dead, or a combination of all three.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it was just like a weird period. And I'm like, ooh, ah. And you've been so lucky. You've had such great roles. You've had like the good parts.
Yeah, I did get some very good roles, but it seems to like I did a lot, but back then it just felt to me like I was always just auditioning for months and months and months, and then I'd get 3 weeks on something. You know how that is. Like
Right.
I did the film Ordinary People. I
Mhm.
shot I shot one day on that.
There's one day.
I shot one day. I rehearsed one day. I shot one day. I flew home. But it looks really good on my resume. Like I worked with people. Like she worked for 6 months on Ordinary. It was a day's work. So empty nest was that was a run. Like you
That
had
was steady every
that
week.
was
Yeah.
that was 7 years of really good, well paid, showing up to work with a brilliant hiatus time, to do whatever the hell I wanted for a few months. That was, but that's the only time I had that kind of consistency.
Well, you were very lucky because a series, and I mean, series can be a grind. It can be very hard after several years. So it was lucky that you were on that one. But yeah, people don't realize what thing they do will resonate. Singers have no idea which of their songs is going to become the weird hit that 30 years later everyone's going to insist they sing. None of us on Little House knew that it would be like this 50 years later. You had no idea. Nobody, while they were making Grease, said, "Yeah, we're going to be going to Edinburgh."
Yeah,
To discuss this in the 21st century. It's how weird is that for actors? I mean, when we're next, do we ever think that this is the show, this is the movie that's going to resonate with people? Do we ever know which is the one? Is it always like the one from left field? Because I never seem to know that the one it's going to be.
I'd never known. The first time I saw Ordinary People, at a screening before it was released, I went, ugh, no one's going to watch this. This is the most depressing I've ever seen. Clearly, I have no idea. And then I did two movies back to back. I did one called Bloodhounds of Broadway, which starred Madonna and Randy Quaid and Jennifer Grey and Matt Dillon, all hot, hot stars at the time. And right after, and I was paid like nothing for it. But then I also did Child's Play, which paid my bills for the year. And I thought no one will see Child's Play. It's this little, it's this little horror film, and everybody's going to be knocked out by Bloodhounds of Broadway. Well, Bloodhounds of Broadway went straight to the video store.
No one cared. Yeah, huge stars.
Child's Play was the #1 film that year. I mean, what do I know? I have no clue.
This seems to be the formula for everyone. It was the Michael Landon told people, long after we're gone, they'll be watching this show, and everyone said he's crazy. He's crazy. No one believes it. No one believed this. And so, no, I don't think we know. And I think of all the projects. I remember there were projects I offered. I was turned down. That was going to be big. I guess it's gone. It's got nobody. It didn't get made. It just it astounds me. Um, but so you've written this book and you've gone with a novel. Now you've not done an autobiography at this point.
No, I don't.
No.
My mother wrote an autobiography
Yes.
that she wrote. She's so amazing. My mother, by the way, is still alive and kicking. She's 98. She looks fabulous. She still goes to Pilates. She lives in New York City in her apartment with her young husband of 84 and his
Boy
twin.
toy.
Yes, she's amazing. She's just ridiculous. So she wrote an autobiography in her 80s on yellow legal pad because she can't
That's
type.
way
She,
too
she never learned to type.
old
And
school.
it's a great autobiography called I Said Yes to Everything. And I don't, I don't want to write an autobiography. I feel very private about my I'm an open book in one sense, that I'll talk about, stuff that's happened with our family, but to talk about other people, to out members of my family or the guys that I, may have slept with, I feel funny about that. And so you can't really do an autobiography if you don't tell other people's secrets. And
Right, you do have to. I was lucky that my people I was talking about was like, oh, good, they said that about themselves in public. Great, okay, good, check.
I
Did you already out yourself? Great,
yeah, I know too much.
right. That's why you'll be in your 80s with a yellow legal pad writing it because
But
it's
I
the only
gotta wait
time to be
till
able to.
everybody dies, and then I can write an autobiography.
Melissa Gilbert, who has written two books though, but she did one say at one of her birthday parties about telling stories, and she said there's some stories should wait till the children have gone to bed, and stories should wait till some other people have gone home, and stories that should wait till everyone is dead.
Right. Exactly. And there's stuff, frankly, that I don't want my kids to read. I
Right.
want them to just see me as mom. They don't need to know all the stuff that led up to mom being mom.
Yeah, it's a lot. So you went with a novel. Now, obviously, you're writing workshops and acting workshops. How much had you written before?
Well, I've always written.
Right.
I never had the discipline to be a writer. I did a lot of directing when I was doing television. I, directed on our show quite a bit and then went off and did some other shows and found that I did not fit that mold of, well, in television, it's not a director's medium unless you're James Burrows. It's the network's medium. And I was not good at taking network notes.
It's either you're totally the network's medium and you just have to go yes, 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 or you fight them every single day, like the Michael Landons, the
Honestly,
birds where you, and then you're fighting more than you're directing half the time,
yeah.
and like what?
And so I did not work and play well with others as a director because, first of all, I knew better than they did, and I stick to that.
And you did.
I did.
Her
I
mother's
knew
named
what was
Grant. She did know better. Come on.
was funny, and they did, and it drove me crazy. So, as an actor, I could get away with my spin on things, but as a director, when I would find myself arguing with the people who were going to fire me for it. So there you go. It
That
was
would make it hard.
not a good fit for me. So writing, I've written a lot, and this book really came out of a workshop that I started many, many years ago. As I was telling you about that incident with the paparazzi, which started it. And I wrote over years, and then my kids were born, and I found them incredibly inconvenient for writing. And I had to make a choice. I was faced with a choice, a real choice about, am I going to isolate myself in the office and yell at them for pounding on the door, or am I going to be the mom I wished I had had, who says, yes, I'll make your snack instead. And I made a choice to not do anything but raise them for that period of time. I mean, I taught acting and I did other stuff, but but
But you
concentrate.
left the house. You did things when you were like would leave and come back. And
Yeah. So um so then when they were in high school, I went back to the book and I went back to working on it, and and sent it out, got rejected, put it away, sent it out, got rejected, put it away. And then I didn't tell you this, but I'm a horseback rider. I ride horses all week.
In addition to everything else, you also, yeah, okay.
Horses is my thing. I love horses. I've had many horses and I ride them. Anyway, the horse I had 3 years ago kicked me in the leg and shattered my leg. And I was laid up and I couldn't go anywhere or do anything. And so I brought the book back out of my files and I said, okay, this is what's in front of me. And I did another draft. I sent it out. And for the first time, I sent it out to independent publishers. And I got 2 offers on it. So that's how it happened. I just kept, doing it. And I was lucky enough to get a really good publisher and editor. Yeah.
And it has to be like the right time, the right place. I mean, my autobiography, I talked about writing a book for I don't know how long and had people say, well, you should.
I love the title of your book.
The Confessions of a Prairie Bitch, How I Survived Nellie Elsie.
I wish it was the title of my memoir when I write it. I don't think anyone can compete with that.
It's yeah. Well, there was someone had an autobiography out, and it was actually just called Bitch, and I was like, darn, they took that one. But that was the thing. People said, oh, are you going to write a book? And it's just years, and then it was time. I was doing the one woman show, and it came out of that. I was doing stand up and doing the one woman show, and then met an agent who said, is there a book to go with this? Oh wait, yes, there is, and things gel and happen. And like I said, you were laid up. It's like nowhere to go except write the book.
And that was it, and I still do writing workshop. I try and go almost every morning to this kind of collective on Zoom that I'm part of, and I'm working on another piece now. But mostly I ride horses, fold laundry, and cook soup. That's really pretty much what I do.
So we always ask this because, someone who started in the business so young and had a family in show business and anything. So what advice would you give a young person looking to go into show business, whether it be writing or acting?
Gosh, I'd be interested to hear what you would say. I have a lot of kids around me here because I teach. I know a lot of kids who are going into show business. And the business has changed so much since I was an actor that apart from, helping to coach them on auditions, I don't have much career advice for them because, if I were an actor going into the business now, I would be looking at making my own material immediately, and that's a possibility now is so fabulous, that you can make up a webcast or, shoot yourself, and find interesting ways. I mean, look at these shows like Insecure and, these incredible shows that like Girls. I mean, that these young women have put up with their own material. That's what I would be doing, I did see one kid here, Oliver Rowland, who was in a community theater piece here, and he was so talented that I went up to him afterwards and I said, if you decide you want to go to work, you tell me because I'll send you to some people. And I did send him to some people in New York. But you see someone like that. Dove Cameron was one of my students here. She wasn't called Dove Cameron then; she changed her name. But she was another one who I saw. Oh, this girl's going to work. When you see it, you go, oh, they've got what it takes to work. But
it is weird now because a lot of the stuff for young people has become sort of a machine. I mean, in the old days, even if you were a teen star, you did the show, and then after the show had been on for a while, maybe you did a pop record thing, a teen idol thing. But now, if you're on a show that's like a Disney or Nickelodeon the show, you're recording the album while you're taping the episodes. The thing hasn't aired yet, and you're getting the album in the can, they're also designing the cologne and the doll of you and
Yes,
the
that whole
lunchbox
branding shit is so
simultaneously before the thing's aired.
terrible.
So they've already decided that you're like a hit, and that you finish shooting, the show starts airing, the second episode's airing, you're on tour for the album you record, and it's like there was no waiting period to see if this was going to work and like if they're going to watch it. You're on this track, and that's really weird. I don't know how you like live like through that. What happens to your brain if you have to do that?
I don't know. I never had that kind of ambition. I was never ambitious that way.
I mean,
I loved going to work, and I liked making money and paying my rent, but I didn't have that kind of career. I wasn't driven ever. Um, uh, and so that would not have been, that wouldn't have been a track I would have been comfortable on. Even now, even, with the book, even with, I love sitting down and talking to you because like, I feel like you're someone I can really talk to, but I find the self-promotional stuff really hard, you know,
it's a whole other job. It's like writing the book, and then there's doing the reading of the book, and then there's the doing the promotion of the book. It's a whole other gig, like thrown on top.
yeah, and the Instagram thing and so I have a friend who knows how to do all that and she helps me with it. But for me it's just like, oh, it just makes me sleepy. I just like doing the fun. I just stay in rehearsal forever. If I could, I would just be in my office writing or in rehearsal and I would never have to, show anybody anything and I could just stay in my little, safe spot.
Don't actually have to open the show or film the thing. Just yeah. Well, and that's the thing is I don't know how for a young person it's like, can you have a career now where you just have roles? You're not like a creation. You just have like roles where you play different people and maybe it works.
Yeah.
Is that a
I
thing you
don't
can even
know.
do that?
Is that a thing you can do? I don't know. You'll have to have somebody very young and, popular on your show and ask them these questions. Like,
Yes. Can you do that? Can you just have regular like acting jobs? I don't know. It's all gotten so incredibly weird. All right. So where do we get the book? Where do we get the book? And we can listen to the book. We can read the book. Where do we get the book?
the book's called The Real True Hollywood Story of Jackie Gold. Oh, I want to read what
Jackie Gold.
Jamie Lee Curtis said about my book. It's
I
the blurb.
There's like 5 pages of celebrity review blurbs here.
Oh,
Everyone.
I hit up everybody I could.
You hit them all. I know. I called everyone.
I would have
too.
hit up you if I'd known you.
Right?
Said, it's a brilliant rewinding of the life of Hollywood blitz, grit, gluttony, and nose jobs. Thank you, Jamie Lee. And you can get the book at on Amazon, of course, or you can go to your local bookstore and ask them to order it for you if you want to give them the business. And it's on Audible and at Amazon. And I love knowing that people are going to read it and I love hearing feedback about it. So
And I'm kind of interested now in getting the Audible. I read, I go, oh, okay, Audible. But the fact that you cast it with all that you said, I can't be all these other people. You cast actors to come in and play the other characters.
yeah.
Now I want to listen to the thing because it's a radio play.
Yeah, it's really fun. I think you'll enjoy it. Yeah.
All right. Am I going to recognize any of the characters? Are there any characters that sort of conspicuously seem like they might be actual real people in Hollywood?
So there are some people who are like compilations of, a few people. There's I had one ex-boyfriend who shall remain nameless, who I used a direct line from him. And the line in the book is um, her boyfriend breaks up with her and he says to her, if someone were to hold a gun to my head and tell me I had to be in a serious relationship, it would be with you. That was actually said to me. So I actually did call him when the book came out. I said, look for yourself. Yeah, but no, I was very good about, disguising, people. And I don't think anybody is directly someone else. Everybody's kind of like a hodgepodge.
But I think people who certainly know Hollywood will read it and go, accurate enough. They will spot the bits and pieces. I'm looking forward to, because just the part I read of the paparazzi bursting in and her getting out on the balcony and then going, oh well.
I think you in particular will have great fun with it because we share such a similar history together.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you for coming on. This is fantastic. Don't let the horses kick you anymore. Don't do that again.
I don't let
Um, stay well, write more books.
it.
This is fabulous. I'm so happy to meet you and have you on here and talk to you. And you are as hilarious as I suspected you would be.
Well, you
And
have
I can't
come,
wait to read your book.
come do your one woman show up in Seattle so I can come and meet you.
Oh, okay. I played Seattle before. I'm a big hit there. I shall have to come back. All right, then. I shall return. Thanks for coming. Thank you, everyone. And yes, this is the Alison Arngrim Show, and I'm Alison Arngrim.
I found my way home, the coast and red.